On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we have a jam-packed show discussing the Thunder possibly trading up in this draft, plus Kyle Filipowski's draft profile and some rumors about Josh Giddey's asking price.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by our good friends over at Prize Picks. Check out Prize Picks. It's the best way to play daily fantasy sports. We have a jam-packed episode. There's so much to get to. So there's rumors of the Thunder trading up for Donovan Clingan. We have to do our Kyle Filipowski draft profile. There's also been talks of what Josh Giddey's trade market could look like, and that sparks into a huge conversation. Plus, another element of this report has been about Topic and if the Thunder could get him as he's dealing with yet another injury. So there's so much to get to. Here's the deal. Because the Thunder season lasted so long, we are now behind on our draft profiles. So you're going to have Kyle Filipowski's draft profile in this show at about the 10-minute mark. And then we're going to have to do another draft dash, a draft dash to the playoffs. So to the NBA draft. So what we're going to do is similar to how we did in the playoffs, where we had a podcast every single day. Starting next weekend, you're going to have to get a podcast every single day, Monday through Sunday, so we can rip through these prospects. And so this weekend, you'll get an additional pod. It'll only be one. So it'll be Jared McCain this weekend. Should be out by Sunday. And then starting next week on Monday, you'll have a podcast Monday through Sunday from now until the end of the rookie intro presser, which will be likely, if it holds true to historical value, which will be on that Saturday post-draft. So it'll be a lot of fun to dive into all of that. So that's what you can look forward to coming up. Today will be Kyle Filipowski, but we really got knocked on the heels of some fascinating draft reports. So the first draft report we could just kind of mention is that Bleacher Report's Jonathan Weiserman mentioned that Gene Salone has worked out with the Thunder. That's only the second public Thunder workout. Now, the Thunder never released their workouts. Historically, I've been able to compile these lists of all the Thunder workouts and talking to agents and working back channels and players themselves, posting it on social media. This group of prospects is not posting their drafts, workouts on social media as much as the past groups. Also, we've lost the element of the Zoom. The Zoom is no longer a thing for these prospects as it was for some of those years. And agents this year, just frankly, are not privy to sharing the information as they were in the past. So the known draft workouts for the Thunder specifically, very, very, very low. It's only 2 names right now. One of them, though, is a viable candidate for pick number 12. Now, ESPN's Jonathan Givony, he unleashed the clip on Friday. There is a billion different avenues you can go from this one report that all pertain to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The most pressing matter is the Donovan Clingan potential trade up. That's what's going to be at the forefront for a lot of people, and what's at the forefront of this show. So the look at Clingan from Jonathan Givony was that the big man would not be lasting past Portland's pick, right? And there are potential landing spots for him via trading up. So Clingan is not expected to drop past Portland's number 7 pick, whom he just visited for a private workout. He is being discussed among teams as a possible target for the likes of Chicago, Memphis, Oklahoma City, or Utah, who all might explore trading up for a player in his mold. Well, that's very interesting to name the Thunder specifically. Now, by that same token, let's not get carried away, because it is presumed that among other teams that the Thunder could target a player like this, which is obvious. That that presumption is really no different than those of you in the comments who clamor for the Thunder to go get a big like Clingan. It's just that they come from the inside of the NBA, so it's taken to a more legitimate level. But it's no surprise that people, especially outside of Oklahoma City, could view this as a very viable option because you have the need, perception-wise, you have the assets, and so thus you have the ability to go try to push all in on this 7'1", 7'6" wingspan big man. Now, you can go back and listen to Monday's show, which I very much encourage you to do with Richard Stamen, as we talked about moving up and down the draft board this year. I think that trading in this draft will be very unique because everyone seemingly wants to get rid of their pick with not a ton of people beating down the door to trade for these selections. So with that being said, it creates this interesting dynamic in terms of the market and how it will fluctuate and how you can be perceived with what the value is. My biggest thing when it comes to trading for draft picks, and we've been consistent on this since 2021, like the ability to trade for a NBA draft pick is not this Godfather offer. It's just not going to happen. So like this Godfather offer where you just overwhelm a team with future picks, that gets you stars. It doesn't necessarily get you up draft boards because historically to get up draft boards, that's all fine and well, but you still need to deliver them their target. Like the idea of a draft night trade is what we've seen last year with the Thunder and the Mavericks, where both sides got their guy. What we've seen with the Mavericks and the Hawks, where both guys got their guy. Like the idea is both teams still get their target, but whoever is going to be moving down gets an additional asset. And so that's where the 24 draft class is uniquely positioned, right, to lead to trade-ups because of the lack of consensus, because of the lack of everyone being on board with a specific player. For example, I've talked to many people who I vastly respect, both inside and outside the NBA, their evaluations of the draft and of these players. And I've seen a lot of them have Ron Holland as their number 1 or 2 player. Now, there's also a very reputable journalist out there who is reporting that Ron Holland might slip out of the NBA draft lottery entirely. That's how polarizing that this is. That's how polarizing that we've seen this become. So like Jonathan Givony mentioned that Holland could slide out of the lottery. But I'm also telling you that there's people inside the NBA and really respect people outside the NBA who view Holland as a top 2 prospect. So it is not inconceivable that with an additional sweetener that the Thunder have to offer, they could get from 12 all the way up to almost name your pick territory. Now, for example, like a guy like Alex Sarr is not going to fall. So like those kind of guys, you can't really get into that realm. But to the realm of what Clingan is, you probably can get there. And we've seen Sam Presti put on the forecourt press for another big before in 2021, Evan Mobley, who was a much better prospect than Clingan. Like Evan Mobley, leaps and bounds better of a prospect. Like going back to what they were viewed at in college, both these guys, Mobley had shades of Kevin Durant, which was, interesting now to look back on. But still, he did like Mobley a lot. It's been well documented. So it would not be inconceivable that he could target somebody like Clingan, because I think that Clingan would help the Thunder. And you can go back on Monday because Richard Stamen also gave us a great rundown of Clingan, of how he differs from Zach Edey and how he's a guy who more seamlessly translates to the NBA because he didn't just simply, sit there and camp the paint and take advantage of the no 3-second call. He was playing in a more, NBA-ish style. In UConn, as you see Dan Hurley now getting rumors to go to the NBA and go coach the Lakers. But 7.4 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists per game, 13 points per game, all while blocking 2.5 shots a game at 20 years old. I really like him in the pick and roll as a drop defender. I think he instantly upgrades your secondary unit because now you have Jay Will as your third big instead of your second big. You can just kind of go down the line there. Then in those 2% minutes where you want to run double big, which is not a lot, like you're not going to do anything for the sake of a 2% advantage. However, there are points in time, and there are the most critical and crucial points in time where that is necessary. You look at that game against Dallas, where they had to get a defensive rebound off of a missed free throw to save their season. They did all they could and pushed in Jay Will and Chet to go get that rebound. They didn't do it. Now, Clingan doesn't assuredly get you the rebound, but he gives you a much better chance. And while that's a very small number of time that you would share the floor with Chet, and a very small number of time that you want to run double bigs, you've then increased, the potential and the power of that lineup. And then you've also made Jay Will's life a lot easier, because while Jay Will and Chet specifically, did not run but 2% of the minutes as Sam Presti kept beating into the heads at the exit interview, Jay Will himself looks a lot better next to a more traditional style big. Or even just a guy who can play that role. Like, Jay Will looks a lot better when he's next to these other options. So you make Jay Will's life easier and better, and like you help him improve with that secondary unit as well. So I like Clingan. I think that this would be an exciting move, because I think that you would get the jolt of like trading up for a prospect, and then the surprise factor, and then you'd get the high end option for OKC, and I don't think it'd cost you even a dent into the Thunder's future. So it would be interesting. Now, again, I wouldn't take this as gold, but it is fascinating that this is even like something that a person at the level of Jonathan Givony feels confident enough to attach his name to as like an option. So we'll, of course, have our Donovan Clingan draft profile and projection and much more. But there's still a lot to get to from this report. We mentioned the Josh Giddey stuff, but coming up, let's do our Kyle Filipowski draft profile. But first, once here right now, but friends over at Prize Picks, check out Prize Picks right now. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. It makes watching the games even more fun. It's the best way to play daily fantasy sports. Prize Picks has what you need. So you pick 2 to 6 players, and you just project whether they have more or less than their Prize Pick projections. Then you can turn $10 into $1,000 with a single game by watching your favorite sport this summer. You can do it for the NBA Finals. That they have all these great options for you, and you can see if you can win. So the benefit of Prize Picks to me is that you're not playing against these fantasy pros, these sharks that just know everything. They study every metric. This is what they do as a living. You're playing the projections. You're seeing, if, for example, Jason Tatum last night, they had a great final special where the more or less was a half a point for Jason Tatum. That clearly cashed. But for example, the second that Jason Tatum scores, you've won. So, you can just see the results play out in front of you without having to worry about a scoring system or having to worry about if another player, is just more studied up on fantasy than you. So it's a lot of fun. Check it out today, because there's always action at Prize Picks. This is the perfect time to try it out, because there's, NBA basketball that's winding down, but make sure you try out esports this month, because every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get a free entry fee back, because you can choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more to get that offer at Prize Picks. Go there right now. Download the app. Use code LOCKEDINNBA for the first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDINNBA for the first deposit match up to $100. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Well, let's talk Kyle Filipowski, our first draft profile and projection. So Kyle Filipowski is a 7-footer with the weight of 230, age 20, from Duke University. And I think that there was a point in time where this was like one of the most sought after and one of the most viewed option for the Thunder at 12. That stock has kind of cooled down for him. He officially measured in at 6'10", 230 with a 6'11" wingspan. Not great for the 20-year-old. Not great measurements for Kyle Filipowski. I think that, he has the raw shooting numbers, like the 38% on catch and shoot really, really encourages you as a play finisher at all 3 levels, especially as a roller, where he produced a point, 1.13 points per possessions in such scenarios. As a cutter, he produced a 1.5 per possession, which is really good. If you have a number 1 or above, it's really, really good. So like Kyle Filipowski can be this play finisher for the Thunder. I also think that he can be this quick decision maker. Now, he will not be this advanced passer. For example, Jay Will, I think, can make more creative and better passes than him. However, Kyle can keep the ball moving and can get you to your next action quickly in the high post at the elbow, where we've seen Mark utilize big since he's had Al Horford. Then that position's gone to Chet and Jay Will. And now Filipowski could fit. You can envision him kind of becoming this offensive hub in the post to spray the ball around and score a little bit from the post. Defensively, you have to love what he brings at the rim. I think that he has great hips to play both sides of the lane, and really that helps him navigate the pick and roll as well. But when he's on an island, what's encouraging is I don't think he'll just be abused out there. So we see at every level of the NBA, regular season, playoffs, finals, the biggest thing is hunting mismatches. Calling Filipowski into the action is not an automatic bucket, because even if you get past him, just with your mobility, he has that length and he has no wasted movements to be able to recover and get a stop. I think that whenever you look at him only allowing matchups to score 40% at the rim this season, that's really good for Filipowski at the college level. One of the biggest red flags is his lack of explosiveness. I don't know if that was a Duke thing. I don't know if that was just who he is as a player, but for a guy who is 7 feet, 6'11", whatever, for a guy who's that big, he does not play that way. He only had 21 dunks on the season. He rarely finishes through contact. He can't just get up and go and take advantage of a late rotating defense. He does not have a quick get off from the ground. And I think that the physicality will hurt his scoring, because he already missed chances at scoring, at the college level. Because of it, it'll get even heightened at the NBA level. I also do not like at all how he plays in transition. He does not run the floor hard in transition. He has a limited, skill set in transition. The best option, really, as he routinely does not get the length of the floor in time, would be that you could pitch it back to Filipowski and he takes a step in 3, but he only shoots 35% from beyond the arc. So that's not like an automatic option, which 35% in like the half court offense, and we saw his catch and shoot numbers earlier. That's not a death sentence. It's a fine option for a guy that's almost 7 feet tall. But when that's going to be your relied upon skill in transition, that's not a good option as a trailer. But his overall lack of physicality is really, really concerning. Really, really, really concerning. So he at one time was like, this was his availability at March Madness. Like, this is what he was listed at March Madness. 13, 12, 9, 9, 9, 15, 19, 12. That is no longer what he's listed at. For one quick reference point, the Ringers draft guide with Kevin O'Connor has him at pick 31. He's no longer talked about as this top 15 guy, really. So, like, what could Kyle Filipowski do with the Thunder? I don't ever think that he could crack into the starting 5 for the Thunder. No matter what they moved around, no matter what they might construct, he could never be a starter for the Thunder. And I think that, if you were to select him, you're looking for the additional size without abandoning at all the current advantages of playing small. And you get an insurance policy in case something happened injury-wise to anybody on the roster. Like, this would be a genuine depth piece for the Thunder. He can play your style. He doesn't have an elite trait. He doesn't have a high-end outcome of being like this starter next to Chet. His high-end outcome is taking what Jay Will does and doing it a tick more effectively. He'd be battling Jay Will for that backup big option. Doing it a tad more effectively and a tad bigger and better on the glass. And while that sounds good in the most basic, boiled down sense, here's a guy who can play your style, who can rebound better than Jay Will, and who can be, I would say, a slightly better floor spacer than Jay will, at this rate. That's not necessarily the value at 12. So, like, that's where you come back to at 12. You're really scratching your head for Filipowski. And I know that he's a really, interesting player and a player that a lot of people like. I'm just not there on him. There are many, many more intriguing options and prospects for me for the Thunder than Filipowski. And we'll get into one of those tomorrow on an entire show about Jared McCain, because Jared McCain is one of my favorite prospects in this draft. So is Devin Carter. We're going to get into all of them. Plus, we'll have to go through the entire draft board, because it is very clear that the Thunder can go make a trade and go do nearly anything that they want to do in this draft, as we mentioned before, with the inconsistencies of the board. So, boiling it down to this, if you trade back, I would really like Kyle Filipowski on the Thunder. If you traded back, if you stayed put at 12, I would think that would be a massive overreach for the Duke product. But I know a lot of you really like Kyle Filipowski. Let me know what you agree, disagree on Filipowski down below. Coming up, let's get into the Josh Giddey trade rumor and a possible draft night slide. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. So we have some more news to get to. First, let's stay with Javoni's report real quick, because this was a part of our first segment. The aspect of this draft that gets kind of interesting is the injury to Nikola Topic, because he was really solidifying himself as a top 10 pick, and in some cases, a top 5 prospect in this draft, before he suffered yet another knee injury. And with the torn ACL, now there's potential for him to slide in this draft, and even slide to pick number 12. And Jonathan Javoni mentions that one of his landing spots could be Oklahoma City because of the slide, because of this injury, which I would find very fascinating. And I think that it's why the Thunder are in such a unique spot, because yes, they do have, the 12th pick in this draft. But the bottom line is, as much as I love Devin Carter and I love, Jared McCain, they're going to bring back the majority of this group next year. And this group was good enough to win 57 games. And this group was good enough to have a crowded rotation already. So when you break down a healthy roster and try to shoehorn in the minutes and leave a slice of the pie out for this draftee, no matter if they're a pro ready or a project, that slice is pretty slim on paper. Now, maybe they get to town and they just impress the heck out of the Thunder, just like Cason Wallace did, and that piece of the pie grows substantially. But on paper, as of this moment, heading into this draft, no matter if you go prospect or pro ready, there's not a ton of room. And you cannot cast all your problems onto the 12th overall pick. Right? Whenever you lay out the Thunder's deficiencies and what they should improve this summer, it's going to have to switch from it's all on this 18 to 20-year-old rookie, and they're going to be the sole fix to this issue. It's going to have to switch from that to it's time to go get NBA players, experienced NBA players. Like, that's who it's going to fall on for this team to improve. It's going to fall on the internal development of Shea, J-Dub, and Chet, and the rest of this team. It's going to fall on the Thunder going out and getting a genuine NBA player. Then it will fall on the 12th overall pick. So that's the hierarchy of who can improve this team. So the Thunder are in a unique position of, no matter if you think that they should take a massive swing because why not, or get a pro-ready player, they can do both. They can do either one and have sound logic behind it. So if Nikola Topic slides, he's an 18-year-old 6'7" guard who is really what you're looking at for a Thunder player who would have to redshirt this season, like Chet did, like Joel Embiid did, like Michael Porter did, like Blake Griffin did, to start their NBA careers. He would not. He just tore his ACL like just weeks ago, so he's not going to play this year. But he's only 18 years old. Giavone points out that he's younger than 6 of the 24 McDonald's All-Americans entering this season. At one point in this draft, he was a consensus number 1 overall pick. And Giavone points out that San Antonio, Utah, Oklahoma City, and Portland could benefit from this Topic slide. I'd be very interested if it got to pick 10. And Topic is on the board, what do you do? Because this would be a swing that the Thunder don't have to take, but they can afford to take. So the Thunder will have, his medical, history, and only the top 15 teams will have access to that per the new CBA rules, as Giavone points out. But it seems real that like this injury could really push him to the Thunder's range. And then you're talking about a player that, why not see if they work out? Like, why not just see if he is who people think he can be, as this great feel for the game and a jumbo guard body with ball handling, quick decision making. You'd have to fix his jump shot, I think, and you'd have to make him a more consistent on-ball scorer, which then you start to describe a certain other player who's not, have the highest approval rating. My other knock on him would be that he's 6'5" with a 6'5" wingspan. I don't like that. But again, it goes back to cost benefit of, here's a player with this much talent at pick 12 on a team that you don't need to flush out with huge talent. Not that you ever want to miss on a pick, but if you were to miss, like, it would not be the devastating outcome. Ultimately, I don't think that they would draft Topic, but it is interesting just to note. And obviously, we start the show with the more interesting outcome, which would be trading up to get Clingan. Now we go to the Josh Giddey conversation. So Sam Vecenie, who is great on The Athletic, on the Game Theory podcast with Motor City Hoops, they did this fun podcast where they traded all 30 NBA picks. So it's important to know that was the idea. This was not just like a random pod where they're sitting around talking ball and was like, what would sound good right now would be trading Josh Giddey to Washington. They were purposefully trading all 30 picks. And when they got down to Washington's, selection at the end of the first round, Sam Vecenie traded pick 26 and a future second round pick for Josh Giddey straight up. And he pointed out that, the Will Dawkins factor, the connection to Will Dawkins and Josh Giddey, who was in that room advocating for the Josh Giddey selection, like that would be great. Washington would need a guy like Josh Giddey, and the Thunder will not extend Josh Giddey, according to Sam Vecenie. So whenever you see that value, I think that it smacks you in the face of like, it's only a pick 26 and a perceivably weak draft and a future second for Josh Giddey. But when you start to unpack the layers of this conversation, they're in such a catch-22. They're in such a dilemma. Both sides are. Because with each passing day, Josh Giddey is trending in the wrong direction, in trade value, in the sense of like racing against the clock. Because he's only under club control, like full club control for this coming season. Then he's a restricted free agent. So if you were to eventually trade him, either you trade him now and give the team that's bringing him on a full season to investigate him in the sense of like, see how he fits the roster, see how he fits the core, see how he develops in a scenery that's not Oklahoma City, where he can be in a more comfortable environment for his play style. If you trade him at the deadline, you've now cut that time in half to kind of explore what Josh Giddey can be. So that's going to be a huge kicker. Number two, Josh Giddey is entering a contract year. Does he want that contract year to be in Oklahoma City, where naturally he's going to be handcuffed? Like, naturally, Josh Giddey cannot play his role here. I know that he wants to make it work and the Thunder want to make it work. And like, there's no hard feelings or animosity between either side. But when you sit down and just think of the business aspect of it, if Josh Giddey's a starter, He by no means can play his style of basketball. If Josh Giddey's coming off the bench, well, he still is going to have touches taken away from him on the J-Dub staggered lineups. So there is genuinely and truly no fantastic outcome for Josh Giddey. What this is going to come down to, I think, this is just a complete guess. Is Josh Giddey willing to take a team-friendly contract right now? Sign the dotted line right now. That would be best for the Thunder. It would slightly limit Josh Giddey's earning potential. Because if Josh Giddey in the contract year came back, no matter if it's with the Thunder or a different team, and he played a fantastic season this year, he can raise that number up of what he commands on the open market. And signing it right now, you would hurt yourself of like, you will just get paid based upon what you've done for me lately and what you've done in these 3 years, which has been up and down. So the pitch would be, you sign this team-friendly contract right now. You get paid. You get the extension. We, as the Thunder, would say that, hey, we'll work with you to get you to a preferred destination should this not work out in OKC. But this would truly allow both sides to kick that decision down the road. Whereas right now, you're up against it. There's no seamless pathway to maximize Josh Giddey here in Oklahoma City, as much as all sides like each other. There just isn't. It'll be really, really, really hard on the basketball floor. And you are running out of time. So even if you think that like, oh, this would be terrible trade value for the Thunder, well, the trade value isn't even necessarily going to get better if Josh Giddey plays better. Like if Josh Giddey plays better and you trade him with half a year left on his deal, then that doesn't really do much for you in terms of improving it, in terms of improving like where you're at. Now, is it as low as like a 26th overall pick in the future second? That hit my ear funny. I did not think it would be that low. I also don't think that Sam Vecini would be making anything up. I think that there's a reason why he said what he said. It is a fascinating conversation, which we dove into extensively with Joel Lorenzi on Tuesday. And we'll be talking about all summer long. But to me, unless Josh is willing to, give up some earning potential inside a team-friendly deal right now, I don't really see the pathway. Or I don't have a good gauge of what the outcome could be. And that would be unfair to ask Josh to do that, like to limit himself earning wise. But who knows? Like who knows? We don't know what these players and the organization is motivated by, or what they're working towards, or what's happening behind the scenes. But there is only one seamless route. Let's put it that way. Cleaning it up, putting a bow on the conversation. The only seamless route is a team-friendly deal this summer. With the asterisks, behind the scenes of like, hey, if this doesn't work, we're going to get you to the place that you want to go. So yes, you give up a little bit of earning potential, but you still are going to get to go where you want to go and where you're going to be comfortable. That would be the only seamless option. Everything else is a catch-22 dilemma where you're just running in circles a little bit. You're spinning plates. So coming up, we're going to have our draft profile and projection series. Obviously, we did Filipowski today. This weekend, we're going to have Jared McCain. Next week, we're going to have Devin Carter. We're also going to have Derek Parker on the show next week. Now, besides those two guys, you let me know who's next. I'm going to give the show back to you in the comments on YouTube and on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. Who is next in the series? Because we're going to have McCain and Carter, but then you guys can go, and I'll just make them based on your submissions. But starting on Monday, we're here for you literally every single day, Monday through Sunday, from now through the NBA draft, because we need to get through these prospect profile and projections here on the pod. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.